Hey, you want to see something really scary?
What's your favorite scary movie?
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
What was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
What's blood for, if not for shedding?
Welcome to Fright Night.
Welcome back to Jump Scare. I'm Betty.
And I'm Chad.
This week we're covering Friday the 13th, the series.
Louis Vendredi made a deal with the devil to sell cursed antiques, but he broke the pact, and it cost him his soul. Now his niece Mickey and her cousin Ryan have inherited the store, and with it, the curse. Now they must get everything back, and the real terror begins.
Happy Friday the 13th.
Yeah. We're here to talk about something other than movies.
And for many people, when it came out, and probably still today for those that were not, alive at the time, they hear Friday the 13th, the series, they automatically think of Jason Voorhees.
Yep.
But we have a special guest today.
We have Alyse Wax with us, who is the author of Curious Goods, The Complete History of Friday the 13th, the series. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, have written the definitive book on it. I don't think anyone's going to top this.
No, they better not. I'll come for them.
But so, how did you get interested in the series? I've seen the book, but for the listeners that might not have, how did you first get interested in the series?
I first came across Friday the 13th, the series, when I was 10 years old. And it was, I know in most places around the country, it aired at like 11 o'clock on Saturday nights or Friday nights, something like that. In Los Angeles, it aired at 11 a.m. on Saturday mornings. So I was 10 years old and surfing channels trying to find some cartoons because, 10 years old, that's what you do. And I came across this show on one of the channels, and the episode ended up being Stick It in Your Ear, which was a third season episode with a cursed hearing aid. And the scene that I stumbled upon was just nothing but these gory, oozing pus bubbles. And it was so gross. And I was so fascinated. And that was it. It was all over for me. I was completely obsessed. I watched the end of the episode, and shortly thereafter, I started recording them every week and watching them obsessively. And that was it for me.
Yeah, this was back in the days when they used to have the TV guide in the Sunday newspaper every week. And I saw it said Friday the 13th, the series was going to be on at 1 a.m. Saturday morning. And I set up to watch it, and I had no idea what it was. I thought like everybody else, thought it was going to be a continuation with Jason or something. I thought, okay, I got to see what they're going to do with this. And then was shocked when it came on and it was something completely different. But after that, I kept watching it week after week because there was really nothing else like it on TV.
Yeah. And I had watched this well before I ever watched the Friday the 13th movies. So for me, in my head, Friday the 13th has always meant the series, not Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, I had seen maybe one of the movies at that point, but I just knew enough about it to think that that's what it was going to be.
Right.
I guess naming that, I love that you named the book Curious Goods, because I feel like that's what the TV show should have been named.
Yeah.
So to avoid kind of the confusion and or the disappointment, which kind of correlates to Halloween 3, when everyone expects there's going to be Michael Myers, but alas, Michael is not in the film. Well, he's not in the film the way that everyone thought he would be in.
Yeah.
Right.
But I myself, growing up, it was one of those things that I also just caught on TV, and I loved all things horror from as far back as I can remember. And I really enjoyed watching the show, and there were just some episodes that really just stood out to me years and years and years later. We'll start with besides the one that you just named, which is the first one you saw, is there another one that it comes to mind, either your favorite or one that's just the most memorable to you?
A couple of them, actually. The first one, obviously the pilot, because it started off the whole thing.
It's a very strong pilot.
It really is. The Long Way Home, which was the one with the yin yang medallion, because that one really reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I loved how scary it was. Trying to remember. Wedding Bell Blues, I really liked, because that was a very Mickey heavy episode, and she was I was obsessed with her when I was younger. The Charnel Pit, with which was ended up being the last episode, which was the one about the Marquis de Sade and the double face painting. That one fascinated me, and it was so rich. There was just so much texture going on in the episode. I love the Scarecrow episode, because scarecrows are scary as hell. I mean, honestly, I have good memories about just about every episode.
Yeah, I can't sit here and think of an episode I didn't enjoy. I've watched, it's sad because there's only 3 seasons, and they decided to change the day and the time of it, and that might have, obviously that must have affected the whole series, and that's why I probably didn't go any further. Like
when it came off of being on like late nights or early mornings, that's when it seemed to slow down.
Yeah, it was, if I remember correctly, it was just that Paramount didn't want to pay for it anymore.
Oh, that figures.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And I read in your book and other places too that it was like the number 2 show at the time, syndicated show at the time, right behind Star Trek.
It was, yes.
So why wouldn't you want to pay for the number 2 show on TV? I don't understand.
Because it wasn't number 1.
I guess.
Yeah, it was. I don't recall off the top of my head. I believe Frank Mancuso Jr. talked about it when I interviewed him for the book. So you'll have to read the book to find out.
But
what got you?
Oh, you know what? I think it had something to do with people complaining about it and sponsors pulling out.
Oh, yeah, that was at the time period when a lot of the horror movies were getting flagged for everything too.
Yeah, it was right in the middle of the satanic panic, and people were freaking out.
Yeah, I lived in a small town in Missouri at the time, and I was very well aware of all the satanic panic. All you had to do was wear a Friday the 13th shirt, and people thought you were worshiping the devil.
Wow. Yeah, I only know about the satanic because I lived in Los Angeles. So, I didn't realize until much older how sheltered I was because of that. And we didn't have any of that. It all took place in far off cities and areas.
Yeah, that's why we were just lucky to actually get to see Friday the 13th around where I lived, because there was such a limited amount of programming that, I was a huge X-Files fan. And when that came on, that ended up being they lost the station that carried it in Joplin, so it became like as shown on another network after midnight, but they would show it anytime between midnight and 6 a.m. So you would just have to record like from midnight to 6 in order to see it. Sometimes they'd interrupt it for an infomercial in the middle, and then play 30 minutes of the show and 30 minutes of an infomercial. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, we had a terrible time seeing anything sci-fi or horror in Joplin.
I have to just say, as a little aside, X-Files is my other obsession. It is my favorite show. I am completely obsessed with it. I have one tattoo, and that is of an X on my wrist.
All right. But you got to get the 13 on the other one to match.
I'm planning on it. I just haven't decided on the design.
Well, yeah, because if you just get the 13, everybody will just assume it's the movies.
Yeah, I don't want that.
So after you started watching it as a kid and you grew up, and then what made you one day say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make the definitive book, which is amazing, by the way. It's very detailed, and
yes,
there's so much information in there. And then I love in between different things you're discussing about the episode, your voice is there, like your humor, and you can really, feel that. It's just, I haven't seen or read anything, like this, about really anything. I mean, I've read a lot of things, but things that break things down usually are just so like
dry.
Cold, and dry, like this is what it is, and then that's it. But you just found a way to just be yourself within it, which I really appreciated, because it's just like, oh yeah, that's funny. Like, yeah, that's exactly what you would think. And I feel like someone that's a huge fan of something would be able to pull something like that off. And you do.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I have to say that is highly complimentary, and I really appreciate you saying that. Because I started watching this when I was 10 years old, so that was 1990, and for a long time, I mean, I was full on obsessed with the show. I had every episode recorded on VHS, at the time, the whole thing, and I watched it constantly, and nobody I knew had ever heard of the show. So that was crazy to me. And I thought I was going crazy. I thought that I made it up. But eventually, the internet came along, and I began to find people and made friends about, over the show. Anyways, I ended up becoming a writer professionally. And I was working at fearnet.com. Writing. I was the associate editor over there, and I realized, I was like, I have a lot of horror contacts, and I have a lot of experience. Why don't I just write this? And a friend of mine recommended me, or referred me to Bear Manor Media as a publisher, and I emailed them, and later that day, it gave me a false sense of excitement, because later that day he emailed me back and he said, hey, guess what, you just sold your first book. So I was like, oh, this is so easy. But yeah, it was just, and that was it. Then it was like, oh, I have to write this now. But it was great, because when I sat down to write it, and I had rewatched every episode so I could write really detailed recaps of it. And I was very concerned that they wouldn't live up to what it had been in my head, and that it wouldn't have aged well. But I was really surprised at how well a lot of these episodes aged. And, it was still a good show, and I really enjoyed it.
There's so many things that stand out. So we covered a film called Whispers that came out kind of when Friday the 13th, the series ended in 1990.
Yeah.
And the movie opens up, and it's a movie, I don't know if you've ever seen it. Chris Sarandon is in it. And
I don't think I have.
It's a weird movie. It's on
Tubi, I believe. It's based off a Dean Koontz novel.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sitting there and the movie's open up and there's music and I'm like, this is the composer from Friday the 13th. Like this is Friday the 13th music. And we go and look and it is Fred Mullen.
Yeah.
And it's his music. And I'm like, that's so crazy. Like how you can be a fan of something. That's like when you watch anything, basically, you know, Danny Elfman's music, you know, right off the bat, like, oh, that's Danny Elfman. Like, you know, the tune. And I just had seen, I love the opening to the TV show. And I mean, where did they even come up with, I was kind of reading the interview that you have here.
10 seconds into it, she was like, that's the Friday the 13th music. And it was like, it wasn't really the theme for the opening, but it was so reminiscent of all the music you hear in the show that once she said that, you couldn't unhear it. And it was filmed in Canada.
Yeah.
So it was one of those ones that you're like, once you see that, you're like, oh, okay, I can't unhear it now. All I heard was the Friday the 13th, you know, because I kept thinking about that through the whole movie after that.
I think a lot of things, I don't know what was going on in the 80s. I mean, I'm an 80s child. The Canada, it would just, so many great things were produced and came out of Canada. I mean, they were just doing all kinds of things. And I just, everything I love literally basically is from Canada, especially in the 80s. I feel like there were so many like TV shows for kids and, you know, just everything is from there. Did you, when you were interviewing Tom McLaughlin, is there in the interview, I mean, it's kind of all throughout like your synopsis of the episodes and, you know, where was the idea of, when did that come about between Frank Mancuso and, you know, of like, oh, let's have a TV show about cursed objects? Because that's very interesting that would even come about.
If I remember correctly, Frank Mancuso told me that basically, because I believe at the time his father was running Paramount, and he told him that he could have a show, he could do whatever he wanted, but it had to contain the Friday the 13th as the title. It had to maintain that because, you know, they had just started like leasing, I guess, the titles, or, you know, getting use out of old titles. So that was the stipulation. And he at first didn't want to do it, but it was like, you know, you can do whatever you wanted. And so he said, I don't have to use Jason. And he said, nope, you just have to use the title. And originally they actually considered like putting the hockey mask in the background or something like that, but decided that he wanted to just leave it completely separate.
Yeah, that would have been, in a way, that would have been kind of neat though, to see like just the hockey mask in the background and just imply that was one of the cursed objects.
Yeah, it would have, but I think that would have both given a good example or a good explainer for the movies, but at the same time, it would have then tied the two properties into the same universe.
Yeah, and like you said, they're trying to keep it separate, but that's one of those things now you kind of wish you could see just a little Easter egg from one or the other. Or like, it was really good when what's his name, John LeMay showed up in the Friday the 13th, because I was one of the few people that was like, hey, he's from the series.
Yep, I said the exact same thing when I saw it.
And that movie doesn't get enough attention. As I really like that they tried to do something different with that, but it didn't seem to go over as well as some of the others.
Yeah, that was number 9, I believe.
Yeah, then I think by that point people were just getting tired of Jason.
Yeah.
You know, you even have, I mean, David Cronenberg coming in and guest directing an episode, you know, and of course, obviously, if it's Paramount connected, you know, I'm sure they're all in the same kind of world. So it's like, oh, come over and, you know, do this. It's a fun little thing that we're going to do. And, you know, it's just, you know, I was actually thinking, oh, this would be so cool, as I would love to see this like remade today. But they kind of, now that I'm really thinking about it, they kind of did that with Warehouse 13, which
Yeah, even has 13 in the title.
Yeah, and I love that show. I mean,
a little bit, yeah.
It's
very similar.
Similar with like the finding of the objects and, you know, the whole like investigative thing and how the objects affect the people, but then different in so many ways. But that whole premise, I think I actually love a lot of the episodes, but we were watching, we watched The Master of Disguise, and it kind of reminded me of Fade to Black, you know, and that whole, you know, and Beauty and the Beast. Like there's so many different things that are going on in that episode, but you said that you were a huge Mickey fan at the time. Was it the hair? Because her hair is fabulous.
It was largely the hair. I'm a redhead myself, so it was really like the first time I remember seeing a redhead in popular entertainment. But also I just, you know, everything, I wanted to be her, you know.
Yeah, she was fantastic. She was definitely fantastic. And you know, there were so many episodes where it's about, you know, the other characters are going around, but I like the episodes where it's her having to deal with it. And in that episode, you know, even though, and you had stated this in the synopsis, but the guys are coming in to save her, but she actually saved herself. And I find it funny, and this is just me being silly, but I love how when you watch a film or a, you know, 30-minute hour TV show, how a character meets another character, they instantaneously fall in love. It's like the strongest like love, and they're overtaken by it. And then they have to succumb, you know, something terrible, and deal with it. But the whole part of them falling in love in such a short amount of time, like I guess it's one of those like love at first sight. For me, it's like that's not real.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a romantic, so I'm like, of course it is. It can happen. And you know, John Bolger. Oh, you're not a romantic.
No. So for me, I'm just like, yeah, of course he's gonna kill you. I mean, come on.
You can't trust that pretty face. I mean, if he came walking through the door, I probably would have been like Mickey myself. I mean,
yeah.
Especially if all the attention was focused on me. I don't know what, like, wow, this famous person, me, like. But then the back of my mind, the realist is like, exactly, you think about that for a second. There's something askew in this. Shad said that he had watched the Playhouse episode, and that episode makes me so mad because, of course, I'm just so disgusted by the mom. She's just obviously the worst mom. You know, neglecting, abusing her children. And the children, it's one of those where like the children are evil, but then you have compassion for them.
I mean, the children really aren't evil. They're just trying to make the best out of a bad situation. And so, you know, they lure in the other children, but they don't really understand, I don't think, that what they're doing is wrong. And you know, the children don't die in the end, so happy ending.
Yeah,
that's true. It's one of the few episodes where no one dies.
Yep.
And although I can't imagine how they explained that to the police in that episode. There's got to be some fast talking going on there. Like, and you three grown people just came out of the playhouse right behind all these missing children, and you had nothing to do with it. There's going to have to be some. I feel like they might have had to use an artifact to get out of that one.
Oh, the fact that the police weren't like on top of Mickey and Ryan and Jack the whole time. I mean, in the whole series, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's true. You'd think they'd figure out after a while that every time they show up somewhere, you know, people die.
Yeah.
But yeah, that episode, I read in the book, you said that the inside of the playhouse, when they transmute, when they go to the other place, it looked like the leftover set from Tom Petty's video, that Don't Come Around Here No More. And that stuck with me because, like, when you said that, like, that's another one of those things, like, I couldn't unsee it after that. That episode was fun too because, like, both of the kids in it went on to do a lot of really big things.
Yeah, Lisa Jacob was in, what was it, Mrs. Doubtfire?
Yeah, and Independence Day.
And yeah.
And the other kid, that Robert Oliveri, he was in all the Honey, I Shrunk the Kid films.
Yes.
Yeah, so they went on to do a lot of big movies at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my other favorite one was the from the first season, the Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Because I always love it when they have the episodes of TV shows, even if it's not a horror TV show, just any of the TV episodes where they take place on Halloween.
Yes.
So I'm always a sucker for that. So when you've got a cursed place that's going to have a Halloween episode, I'm all there.
Yeah.
And I love seeing the shop all decorated up in the regular Halloween. And there's already enough scary stuff in there as it is, but then they actually decorate it with fun stuff for Halloween. And Jack dressed up as Merlin going around doing his magic tricks. So that one was always one of my favorites. And, you got to see Lewis come back for the first time. And it always cracked me up that when the little demon asked, like, do you want me to find a man or a woman? Lewis is just, I don't care. Just one that's just a body I can go into. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Go. Okay, Lewis says he's here to get back. He doesn't care how.
Yep.
And the cursed object in that, I mean, the amulet of Zohar, like the bunny in a circle, like
yeah, that was it's such a nice looking little amulet. Like you would give that to a child,
Yeah, I was upset that I didn't get invited to this party because this is the kind of Halloween party I would love to go to.
Yeah.
And it also plays on the time because I love the little, who at the time, you don't know it's a demon, or do you, the little girl who's taking Jack around. And, it's the 80s at this time, little girls are dressing up. She's dressed up as like a rich old lady with the fur. And I love that because that's exactly what, back in the day, you would just either take something from mom's closet or you would just make something up, something simple. Now everyone wants to be like, what's her face from Suicide Squad and and walking around with micro shorts and, who I'm like, can we go back to the traditional, just
the simple days.
The simple days, is that me being an old lady, I guess? That's when you start like, oh, you're an old lady. You're talking about, back in the day, in my time. But I did love how Halloween-ish. And I think that's the only Halloween episode in all of the three seasons.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a shame because they could have really capitalized on that more.
They could. I figured because they're like, look, it's a show about cursed objects. It's Halloween every day on the set. Like
exactly.
Oh my goodness. I can't say enough things about the show that I really enjoyed. And the book has, your book, Here's Goods. It has, some photos from, behind the scenes and on set that you were able to get. And I love like the inside look, stuff that's not something you normally would see. Photos like that. So that's neat. Do you have favorite interview? I mean, I'm sure you liked speaking with those that wanted to that were available and could speak to you about the series.
I mean, I really managed to get pretty much everyone I wanted to, other than Chris Wiggins, who at the time was very ill and he couldn't speak to me. But I couldn't pick one. I really couldn't because they were so great. Everyone was so eager to talk to me. And, nobody had any horrible stories to share. Everyone had great memories. Kate Trotter, I believe, shared a story about how she broke her finger in the middle of filming a scene, but she still had such great memories of filming the scene that it was like, oh yeah, my finger was broken, whatever. We kept going. And it's just, I love hearing that, it makes me so happy to know that this show that was such a huge, huge part of my life was pleasant for everyone, was a good memory for everyone.
Yeah, because so many times now you hear about the shows and you find out there was nothing good happening on the set.
Yeah.
And that kind of like ruins it for you, because you're like, oh, now all I think about is how miserable everyone was when they were filming this. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that everyone had great memories of it.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do the whole thing, the interviews and compile everything and break it down episode to episode?
I think it ended up taking me about 1.5 years to write. From the day I got my approval letter to the day I turned in my final draft. It was about 1.5 years.
And have you sorry, I stumbled on that one there. Go ahead.
My question would be, are there certain episodes or an episode that you normally that you go back to, that either is something like, we have different, Shad and I, we love so many things, but as he said before, he was an X-Files fan, and we try to go and revisit episodes even though we've seen it 1,000 times, like, okay, every time this year we go and revisit this one, because it's our favorite, or it's just something that we do during this time of year. Is there one that, do you revisit any of them at all, like on a yearly basis?
I haven't in a few years. And I think largely it's because they're not available to stream anywhere, and I'm just too lazy to get up and put in my DVDs. I popped one in a couple of years ago. I think it was on a Friday 13th, and I was like, I'm gonna watch a couple episodes. But no, there's none that like specifically stick out to me for any particular time of the year.
Okay. Is there a follow-up question? Is there a cursed object that you would like to keep or have, maybe come across, even though they're cursed?
No, just purely from a design aspect, I've always really loved the radio. I thought that would be a really amazing one to have, just, like a prop to have.
Yes.
Or compact.
Yes, that's mine.
I love
compact.
But there's so many, I just, yeah.
There are a lot. Sorry, that was a very nerdy question.
It was, and now I'm like, oh, maybe the Cupid statue.
Oh, yes. That'd be fine. When you mentioned about the DVDs, I was really wish they would put out a better quality version of this, because the version on DVD, it looks like someone may have just used your tapes and recorded them and put them on DVD a lot of times. Because go ahead.
Yeah, the DVDs are terrible quality, and there's no special features on them. And I tried to very, very briefly kind of talk to somebody about this at the time when I was working on my book, about, getting a special edition done, but CBS Paramount is not really interested, and I didn't really pursue it because I didn't really understand how that side of it worked. I was like, I'm better with the writing, but I know that so many of these people would be happy to sit down and be interviewed.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe if they would put these on streaming, it would show enough interest that they would get the set out again, And
for a while I had a little campaign where I was harassing Paramount Plus to put them up on their streaming site when that went live, but after a few days I lost track of it, and I haven't done it in a while, but I should.
Yeah, like they have it. It's not going to cost them anything to put it up there, even if it's not, even if it's not the greatest quality. Still put them up there, and then that just gets people to campaign and want it and say, hey, I would pay for an enhanced version of that.
Yep.
And I'm sure, like you said, people would love to sit down and talk about it. And there's no doubt a lot of behind the scenes footage that people still have somewhere.
There's gotta be. I would love to see that. Gosh, I would love to see that.
Because if nothing else, I'm sure the actors probably have some things that they saved, some photographs or some video that they took, because that was when camcorders were getting big.
No footage. I think that that pretty much is, if it still exists, it's in the Paramount vaults. But a lot of the cast and crew had a lot of photos, and that's what I used in my book. They're all behind the scenes, never been published before photos.
Okay. That'd be nice if they could get all that and put that in the sets. They do a lot of the TV shows and movies have the still galleries. That'd be great to put all of them on that.
Yeah.
Now, did you or did you not cry? Or maybe you don't remember. But when Ryan, when John LeMay's character, when he I want to say left the show, but he did. And we have the other character replacing him, but I was so sad. I don't Chad. I'm trying not to give too much away, but one, it's been a while since the Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's a 30-year-old show. The spoilers are over for it.
Yeah, I think the spoiler embargo goes off on that.
Well, to be honest, Chad, it's actually more for you, because I don't know if you remember what happens to his character. But
I do. I didn't get to see a lot of the third season until they actually came out on DVD, because they stopped showing it after the second season in Joplin. So it wasn't until the stuff came out on DVD that I actually got to see. I think I saw some of them when they reran them on Sci-Fi a few years ago.
Yeah.
But so I didn't even know that what had happened to Ryan until I saw them in reruns years later.
Yeah, I was devastated, but I did appreciate that he didn't die, which usually, they kill off a character, right? But he gets to kind of get to redo his life in a way, which is interesting. Interesting way to, have the character still be in the world, but not
and that
in the
left
world
it
anymore.
Open if he wanted to come back too.
That's true.
They could have somehow reversed the spell and he could have come back.
So were you sad?
I mean,
for the character.
I don't honestly remember. I'm sure that I was. I'm not a big crier.
Okay.
But I'm sure that I was really upset. I was probably 11 years old, and I do remember, weirdly enough, when I saw the scenes for next week's episode for the Sweetest Sting with the beehive, and Mickey gets caught by the bees, and that just freaked me out. I was so upset for her. But I think, I don't know how I felt about it. I mean, I'm assuming I was sad.
I know that's a weird question, but it's one of those, you are watching this character, and it's not like it's obviously 5, 6, 7 seasons, but it's you're with this, you're an adventure every episode, and then you're you don't expect going in oh no, this is happening.
There weren't a lot of TV shows that killed off main characters back in the 80s.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty much once the main cast started, that was it. They were there. That's why it was shocking on the first season of Star Trek when they killed off Denise Crosby's character, because that usually didn't happen. So yeah, for that to happen on the show was kind of surprising. Now, after Game of Thrones and all that, you just take for granted that no character is safe,
Yep.
Well, I think that, we kind of went over everything. Where can others, besides us, because we already own it, where can others find Curious Goods?
You can buy Curious Goods on Amazon and directly from the publisher, which is Bear Manor Media. I think it's bearmanormedia.com. But yeah, I think Amazon's just the easiest place to get it.
Okay.
And you can also there's a hardcover, a soft cover, and a Kindle edition.
Okay. Yeah, we have the Kindle one. Because we like being able to I like on that to be able to scroll through it quickly like that and find the episodes when I was going through them.
Yeah.
I love the search feature. Like you just type in what you're looking for in that. Because I'm more of a, well, we both are. We have a lot of books. But, definitely this is something that it's like, oh, okay, we love this. So we will definitely own it as a hard copy of something so we can have it. So that it will be part of our horror collection that we have, because it is the definitive. I mean, it's not going to get better than this, folks. So it's a good investment. If you love Friday the 13th, the series, you love the episodes, you want, insider information, interviews, some photos that have not been seen. I mean, you're not going to find it, I don't think, in Google, Google search.
No.
So this is it.
Yep. There's, I think there's over 60 interviews, all of which are unique to this book, exclusive to this book. And I think 50 or so never before seen, never before published photos, behind the scenes photos. So there is definitely plenty of stuff.
Are you currently working on any other books? It doesn't have to be in this horror world, just anything else you want to throw out there?
Currently, I'm not working on any other books. I have a few that I've been pitching around and haven't been able to get off the ground. I have recently, just last year, published a collection of essays from horror journalists, horror directors, women in horror about the horror industry. And that one's called Creepy Bitches.
Excellent.
And the article that I wrote in that is actually an X-Files one. And the other book I have is The World of It, which is a photo book, an art book for Andy Muschietti's It and It Chapter 2, based on the Stephen King novel. So
was that one, I'm sure you had to go into a lot of detail on that one, because that book is huge.
Yes, it is. It was, this was specifically about the films, Andy Muschietti's films. So it was an art book. So it mostly just dealt specifically with the movies and that. So, and that one was published by Abrams Books.
Okay. Awesome. So yes, definitely check out those two other books, because those sound also fantastical.
All of those are also available on Amazon.
We'll post links up on all the episode info about this.
Delightful.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. We really enjoyed your book, and we will enjoy it for years to come, because it's definitely a series that we love. And like I said, I mean, I can't say anything, I can't say more about it. I just love it. It's fantastic.
Go out and buy it.
Yeah, please.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us on this episode, and stay tuned to the horror.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.